Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Maverick Mindset Radio Show. I am Adam Williams, and this is the radio show for the dreamers and doers. It's for those who are willing to step into the arena. Some call us the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers. We don't accept the status quo. We leave the world better than we find it. We approach each day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind. We maintain a rational optimism about the future. This is the Maverick Mindset Radio Show, brought to you by me, Adam Williams. And first solo show for Adam. Ashley's not here, although we do have a guest, and I'm going to get into that. So it's my first time manning the studio, the microphones on my own. Joel, of course, is here helping me out. So this is going to be an awesome show today, and not just because Ashley's not here and can't keep me reined in. We're back. It's show 45, and I am really excited about today's guest. I don't want to waste a whole lot of time building up to this thing. I don't want to, I want to get right into this, because when we launched this show, Ashley and I were brainstorming people that we wanted to have on this show. And Brett Trembly, who's our guest today, was towards the top of that list. I've known Brett since 2019, and I don't know, maybe he'll take offense to this, but in my eyes, you can map his career trajectory and mine, and they parallel each other. Brett is an attorney. He owns a really successful business law firm in Miami, which if I wanted my life to be easy, I would start a business law firm in Miami. He then, based on the success of that business, has spun off some other businesses that we're going to hear about today. But what's most interesting to me about Brett is I think that he has found a way to create freedom in and from his business that a lot of entrepreneurs don't even understand. I think Brett is a master of vision and leadership and delegation, and we are going to hear all about that today. So before we get into it, of course, going live every Wednesday at 9, blowing your mind. At 9:05 on Facebook, Maverick Mindset Radio. I know I mixed that up. Don't yell at me, Joel. We got the episodes up on Spotify and YouTube and iTunes, so make sure you like and subscribe out there. And then, of course, MaverickMindsetRadio.com. That's it. Let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, Brett Trembly. Welcome, Brett.
What's up, Adam? Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate the intro.
Are you in Miami? Are you home right now?
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I only ask because it's like 17 degrees outside, and my lungs are frozen when I go from my car into the studio. So
I thought about wearing a hoodie just to kind of like, it's winter, I'll just help you out, but I can't.
As a sign of solidarity, that would have been nice.
Yeah.
And you Floridians are soft. When it's 65, you need to bundle up. We get it. So, and you're 100%. Not
actually, if it's 71 or lower, I do wear a hoodie because it's like my only chance. And so that's my preferred, garb. But like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
We get a few weeks per year.
All right, so here's what we do when we have guests on the show. We've got a handful of prepared questions, and we don't share these questions with you in advance because we want to catch you off guard and get your true and honest answers. So we're going to knock these things out, and then you and I can really get into the meat of the conversation here. So,
all right, let's do
it. The first two questions I'm going to combine because Ashley isn't here. Give us your name, your business or businesses, and then just a quick 60 seconds on your backstory.
Got it. Brett Trembly. I own Trembly Law Firm in Miami. Very similar law firm to yours, Adam. Business law. We litigate and we do franchise law as well. So we work with business owners, whatever business owners need. And then I started also Get Staffed Up about 6.5 years ago. That's a virtual staffing company for lawyers and law firms primarily. About myself, 60 seconds. I'm from the great state of New Mexico. Not a lot of people from New Mexico, but if you are a Breaking Bad fan, then at least we have something, to kind of like talk about. And unfortunately, the portrayal of New Mexico is very true in a lot of ways in that show. I moved to Miami for law school in 2005. I graduated 2008, worked at a small law firm for 2.5 years, opened my own in 2011, and never looked back. That's my story.
That's awesome. And it has been a journey for you of really fast growth with both of those businesses. I think both Trembly Law Firm and Get Staffed Up have made the Inc. 5000 list, right?
Yeah, both of them 3 times.
Man, that's unbelievable. This is a true entrepreneur we have in front of us today, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so just a couple minutes. What's going on in the businesses right now that's got you excited?
So, well, just full transparency, I mean, the law firm, we were growing by 100% or 50%, but usually 100% every year for about 6, 7 years. And the pandemic hit, and then it's been a lot different. The legal market in Miami, working virtually, um, returning to work. So I think what has me excited is it feels like for the first time we're getting back to pre-pandemic type legal team setups where people want to work together. They're a little bit tired of
Mhm.
the work from home, and people want to sort of get back to the good old days, if you will. And that has me pretty excited because you really, and I run a virtual company, so this may sound funny, but in when you're litigating, especially, like there's energy there, and your mental warfare, and you're slinging paper, and so you got to be around people because it takes a lot of, it's mentally taxing,
Yeah.
to battle with other lawyers, especially. So that has me excited there. And what's interesting about the staffing world is when we started in 2018, we were like the only player.
Right.
And now it seems like every week there's a new virtual staffing company coming out, which is this is the way business works, right?
Yep.
Like someone sees success and then other people try to emulate that success. I
Yep.
mean, that's like, business 101. And so what's fun about that is trying to navigate what we do next. And we got some big things on the horizon. At least we think they'll be big. So it's never changing in business, but I'll tell you, two very, very different worlds, the law and staffing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so, I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned getting back to life before the pandemic, especially in Miami, which I think was a city that saw a ton of transformation, that you had people moving to Florida for, I don't know, regulatory or legal reasons that they felt there
Yeah.
were fewer restrictions. The Miami real estate market blew up. Miami, in my opinion, kind of became like the crypto and NFT capital
Uh-huh.
of the world there for a little
Hmm.
while. So it's interesting to see that transition back. And just so people get the scale here a little bit, how many employees do you have in the law firm, and how many employees do you have at Get Staffed Up, roughly?
Yeah, right. I was gonna say roughly about 35 to 40, with a good chunk of them being virtual at the law firm. And then about 150 at Get Staffed Up.
And I want to get into a little bit later in the show. I want to talk about some of the virtual aspects versus working in person, because you definitely see both sides of it. We had a new employee start on Monday who's based out of Virginia, and we're onboarding him, and we're very intentional about the experience. We've talked about it on this
Hmm.
show. Uh, but I wish the guy was here. At least for those first few days, we should have brought him up, probably just to get him more indoctrinated into our culture and what we're all about. And we're
Yeah.
we're doing our best virtually, but I just feel like it's a little isolating. And this is now our last three employees were Washington State, Texas, and now Virginia, and
Okay.
and we're here in Erie, Pennsylvania. So it's
What
definitely.
where does that put your matrix of domestic or like local versus remote?
Oh, that's a good question. We're probably about half and half right now.
Okay.
Although I told you before the show, we have another assistant from Get Staffed Up that I interviewed last week that we're about to make an offer to. So that'll
Okay.
shift the balance. And we have two other positions right now that we're about to make offers on. One is local, and one is I think also in Virginia. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it'll definitely be worth us spending some time talking about that later on.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
so back to our structured, scripted interview questions. Imagine that you could have a panel of three people, living or dead, to help you with your most important decisions. Who are the people you would want on your panel, and why?
Okay. These are the scripted questions that you don't tell the
Yeah,
guests, right?
that's
We're,
right.
we're into those.
That- I-
Okay,
If
good.
you prepared this, you'd overthink it, and you'd come up with these perfect answers and make people happy. But we want the truth, so we don't let you prepare for these.
All right. So first is going to be Winston Churchill. I mean, it's probably the most common answer, but I don't care. It should be. It's like
See,
whatever. I'm
you're
not.
already overthinking it, Brett.
Yeah. The second is probably Ronald Reagan.
Okay.
Not trying to play into the audience here, but like, and the third, this is going to be a different one, I think, is Joan of Arc.
Wow. Okay.
And the reason is I don't know as much about her as I should, but to be like a young leader and make things happen is so inspiring to me because anyway, we'll get into leadership later, but I've just
Yeah.
always been fascinated with how a young, female could be such a great leader. I just love it.
Everything I know about Joan of Arc, I know from Bill and Ted. That's it, right? When you said Joan of Arc, I immediately pictured that actress in those movies. But that's a good one.
Hilarious.
All right, good stuff. All right, here we got another one, and we get really interesting answers to this. Have you ever hated anyone?
Shoot. Yeah, growing up, I'm sure I did. Oh man, hated anyone, like really hated.
Do you think you've grown out of that?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, just because, first of all, I'm a redhead, right? Now, if I had hair left, you would be able to tell. And with redheads come a few interesting things. One, we need more anesthesia, which is a scientific fact. I don't know if you knew that,
All
but
right.
we're more like
If our
immune.
listeners get nothing else out of this show, feel bad.
Yeah,
Feel even more bad for your redhead friends.
right? No, well, it's because we have bigger hearts. No offense to anyone else, but that's just the way it works. Um, but that comes with a temper, and
Okay.
so there's moments for sure where I can just be full of passion and fury and hate somebody. But over the long run, there's not one. When you said that, there's not one person where I have this like burning hate for. You and I have you mentioned our journeys. I'm not offended at all by what you said. I'm honored by it. I've always, I've always loved your energy. There's a former NBA player named John Sally. He's the first one I heard him say like 20 years ago, like money loves energy.
Hmm.
And you and I were in a group together where a lot of, and I was in the group or still am actually for 13 years. And a lot of new young whippersnappers would come along and they'd want a seat at the table with kind of like the old guard in the group, if you will.
Yep.
Not that the group's like that political, but there's friends and all
Yep.
that. And then, but there was flashes in the pan, and people would come and go.
Hmm.
And I've always felt like, without thinking about it too much, that you were different,
Hmm.
and you've got like a boundless energy, but you're also directed. I'm sure you do other things you could feel like are distractions at times,
Yep.
but so I've always respected that greatly. And you and I have probably done a lot of the same work. I've meditate, read a lot of books. Hate is such horrible energy for yourself, and then it just brings bad things from other parts of the universe onto you
Yep.
if you're not able to let it go. And there's some people I maybe dislike, or you don't forgive, or you don't forget how they are, but spending the mental energy hating somebody is not not good use of my time anyway.
I've been using it. I've been using that dark side short term for motivation and energy, right? Just
Yeah,
just like Michael Jordan did, just like Kobe did. Like
sure.
I'm going to take
Yeah,
advantage of that, but yeah, you're right that
yeah,
lingering on it isn't going to do you any good. So good answer.
yeah, yeah.
All right, so you're what did you say? 14 years into your firm or something like that? I can't remember when you said you started.
2011.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so we're
well,
coming
in
up on
November we'll hit 14 years.
yeah. So interesting because that's right around the time I started my firm. If you had to do it all over again, what would you do differently?
This is going to sound really self-serving, but I don't care. It is 100% true. I would get an assistant day zero.
Yeah.
Day zero. I mean, every business, we always say if you don't have an assistant, you are the assistant, but you're also the CMO, the chief sales officer, the lead attorney if it's a law firm, if
Yep.
it's not, every business has these needs. Just because you don't hire those people doesn't mean they're not needs. You
Yeah.
have financial needs, accounting needs, and it's the hot dog stand. The guy that goes, he bought all his own supplies, he bought his own equipment. If he makes sales, good, then maybe he makes some money. If not, nothing happens. And just so many people try to run a business that way,
Yeah.
and that's where the source of 2.5 years of just major frustration, anxiety, stress. Yeah, I don't know exactly your origin, Adam, but mine. I cut out on my own when I was 29. I was like a month before I was going to turn 30.
Okay.
And then I did everything myself for 2.5 years, and I was just running myself dry, man. I mean, I was just killing myself, and it wasn't any fun.
It took me longer to learn that lesson. I did it for probably 5 or 6 years before I learned the lesson. But yeah, I mean, that's actually, it's great advice and it's on brand for you, and people can hear that as biased, but I agree with that 100%, that a good assistant, which is, I think, easier to find now than it ever has been because of
Oh yeah.
companies like yours that can place people from all over the globe at a very reasonable cost. I think that's great advice, that if you don't have an assistant, you are the assistant. And that's true for every other role in a business. Receptionist, toilet
Yep.
paper replacer, coffee
Hmm.
brewer, to attorney or tailor or lawnmower or whatever it is, right? So yeah, that's really, really good advice. All right, what keeps you up at night?
Not a lot.
Hmm.
I know it's more of a, maybe not realistically what keeps you up at night, but metaphorically, I think sometimes child issues, right? Like if your kid's going through something, that always
Yeah.
affects a parent more than anything. Business wise, it's like a big personnel change that you don't see coming.
Mm.
Maybe one of your, like we had our the guy that was the heir apparent to be our really our COO. It gets staffed up,
Yep.
just leave out of nowhere. It turned out to be really good for the business,
Yeah.
but those sort of like as you try to grow in business, you take more risks and you get to a certain level and you feel really good about yourself.
You know what? That's
And
it.
then
Yeah. Good.
and then stuff happens and then you're like, what is happening to my business? There's days where you're just like you feel like everything's falling apart and it's not, but taking that step back is difficult. So I think just like anyone, those moments, they don't really change as your business continues to grow.
You know, what's really interesting is because you've been at this for 15 years and because you've seen so much success. I mean, two businesses 3 times on the Inc. 5000 list is that there's a short list of entrepreneurs in America that can claim that. And you said something that the personnel changes, right? You've got the heir apparent to the COO who just leaves suddenly. That would implode so many businesses. And what you skipped over the story, and I've complained about this on this show. You skipped over the Rocky montage, which is all the hard work.
Right.
And what you said was, we came out better for it on the other side. That only comes with experience, and that only comes with having that happen to you over and over and over again. So you build that muscle.
Yeah.
And the approach that I've taken, and frankly, probably the next book I'm going to write, this is what you signed up for. And at some point in your entrepreneurial journey, you realize those days where it feels like everything's falling apart and the employee leaves for no reason and some vendor's trying to take advantage of you and somebody wants to sue you and your website stops working and you launched an email campaign but you forgot the proper links to the landing page. All of that stuff that goes on, if you just say, you know what, this is part of being an entrepreneur and I'm going to get through it. It's so easy to say that, and it's so easy to gloss over that part of the story. But those are
Right.
the
But
days and those are the moments where you're like, man, is
mhm,
this worth it? Is this really what I want to
for
be doing?
sure.
So
For sure. I love, sorry to interject here, but I love the Rocky montage sort of analogy you made. I wish I had one. I wish I could see like pictures and I had, like a notebook because I keep a journal now, but I only started that about 5 or 6 years ago.
yeah,
But if I could go back and have that montage and remind myself what I went through, it would be easier to communicate it, but also easier to not forget and be like, look, this is where I was. And if I'm here, then you're here. If I was there and you're here, you can do it too.
yeah. Yeah, I look back often at 2019 Adam, and I remember the things that he was doing. And they're the things that put 2025 Adam in the position that he's in. And it's like, man, I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
sucked at the moment. It was horrible. You had multiple days, sometimes multiple days in a row where it's like, I'm ready to quit. I'm ready to give up. I don't want to do this anymore. It's harder than anybody could imagine. And I think
Yeah.
that's the problem with entrepreneurship on social media is they skip over that stuff too. They want it to look easy. And usually these are coming from coaches and people who have never actually accomplished anything trying to sell you success
Right.
products.
Right.
So yeah, that's a really good point. All right, last question, and then we're going to get into some really good stories here. What do you want to be doing in 5 years? So here we go. We just talked about 2019 Adam and 2025
Yeah.
Adam. What is
Yeah. Yeah.
2025 Brett
Well,
telling 2030 Brett?
and I like the way you say that because you said how I was spending my time or the thing you said the things that I was doing. And how we spend our time is what differentiates one another, right? Like we all wake up and then we make decisions, thousands every day, with how to spend our time. And when you are able to stop spending your time on the things that aren't moving you forward by delegating those things and bringing people on your team, because your business still has those needs, right?
Yep.
That's what moves people forward. So you actually you get further by doing less, but you're doing more on the 80/20. And so, that's what you got to focus on. 5 years from now, so we just bought, or I guess we're under contract for a 5-acre piece of property in Palm Beach County.
Sweet.
I've been in Miami 20 years, but it looks like we're moving up there soon. And I want, we're going to build out like a nice house, but also a big like gym, office, entertainment, like a really
Compound.
really cool.
It's a compound.
Yeah, yeah. I was calling it facility, but I like compound. I may roll with that. So I'll put a plaque of you up there.
Yeah, you know what? I want your garage to be named in my memory. Can
Hey,
we line that up?
so do we do the Talk Erie hot box, workout gym, or do we do the Adam Williams honorarium? What do we do there?
Well, of course I want it to be my name. And not, yeah.
So yeah,
Cool.
but also a few horses. I like the land, and I've been in a suburb in Miami, so it's like I'm in a high rise, but
Yeah.
I'm ready for a little more space.
It's interesting. Is that how you grew up? Like you grew up in New Mexico?
Right.
I imagine desert and space, and you can't see your neighbors type of stuff. Is that?
Yeah. I mean, I had a lot of friends that were far enough out
Yeah.
that it was like that. I was not so far, but we had 7 acres and horse and it's probably what it is.
Yeah.
Like I love it out here. I do miss the mountains and the space.
Love it. All right. So let's get into this, because even in our pre-framed interview questions, you had a lot of really good stuff that you brought out. Just to check in, Maverick Mindset Radio, we are live today with Brett Trembly, founder of the Trembly Law Firm, founder of Get Staffed Up, a virtual assistant staffing company for law firms that is absolutely killing it and is a really valuable vendor in our business. Today we got Brett Trembly. He is also the author of 24 Months to Freedom. And if you're watching on the video, I'm holding the book up. It's available on Amazon. In fact, you know what is funny? I totally forgot about this, Brett.
You're in there.
I'm in there.
Yeah.
Now I gotta find what page
You
I'm
gotta
on.
go. Let's find the best part of the book. Oh, look at that! It's this little snippet from Adam
Yeah,
Williams.
yeah. If you want to skip to the really good story, just go to my page. Well, we'll find it in there later.
Yeah.
But the point is, I really love the book because you demonstrate through your own experience, and you demonstrate through the experience of the clients of Get Staffed Up, that 24 months to freedom is possible, and you lay out a roadmap for it. And so many entrepreneurs who get out and start a business, and they're self-employed and they haven't done anything other than create a crappy job for themselves, forget that what they really can accomplish, or maybe they never even learned this, is you can have a business that works for you. And you
Yep.
said it right towards the end of our first segment there, of like the less you work, the more successful your business can be. So for everybody who's out there doubting that, explain that a little bit. Let's go into a little bit in depth into the freedom that you've created with your businesses, and again, businesses that are wildly successful. How's it work? Like, lay out the roadmap for us. What are the lessons we need to know?
Sure. I'll tell you, I have 2 books. The first one, I tried using a company. It's like, just talk to us for an hour, then we turn it into a book, because it's just a marketing thing, and it was terrible. So then I rewrote it, and I still wasn't that happy with it. It was, more on the legal side. I poured my heart and soul into this book, and I've gotten so many, I believe, genuine comments about this book and how good it is. And like, just rereading through it, like, I think it's a really good book. However, you and others have texted me, what I should have done is name this book "Buy Back Your Time."
Yeah.
That's essentially what we're talking about here.
Which
But,
the irony is, Dan Martell's out there, and he's more rich and famous than you are, and he wrote the
by
book.
far.
Yeah,
That's what I
wrote
mean.
he wrote "Buy Back Your Time," but that's literally the
Exactly.
lesson that you're teaching in here.
It came out because I went back and looked. I mean, they were like very similar releases. His is like noteworthy. Mine is like, put it under your the corner of your table
You know
type
what
thing.
though?
So,
Yours is better for lawyers. I mean, you've got a narrower market for who you're
oh, for
talking to,
sure.
right?
No, no, I know, I know.
He nailed it for entrepreneurs, but for attorneys in particular. But I think that's the important part is attorneys who own law firms who are entrepreneurs get a ton of value out of this. Entrepreneurs who just want to understand how to have freedom and scale their business a little bit can also get a ton of value out of this because it teaches you how to work with an assistant, how to work with a virtual assistant, how they can make your life easier and help you buy back your time. Don't sue us, Dan Martell. So it's not a difficult read either. Like you made this really easy to understand. So
Yeah,
I love it.
yeah.
I love it.
By the way, yours was the really long one, so that's how I usually find your snippet in here.
And
Uh,
you guys edited it significantly because I think I had some
There,
swear
oh yeah,
words in
dude, I
there.
had to cut that thing. So it's on 133 and 134. I remember it's in the back, and it's like I spent a few days like, man, how do I take this novel down to something that fits there?
Yeah, I
So
love it. Well, then I just
sorry,
had
sorry.
no, it's all right. Then I just had to go and write my own book because
There you go.
clearly I wasn't getting enough love from you. You know what's really funny though is when did this book come out? Was this 2023?
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
even,
coming
yeah.
up on 2 years.
I mean,
There should be a lot of freedom because we're coming up on 24 months.
yeah, I'm there. It's time to step on the scale if you bought Brett's
Yeah.
book when it first came out. So tell me a little bit about. I mean, you said if you had to do it over again, day zero you would hire that assistant to help you with things. You launched a law firm, you grew a law firm, you scaled it really incredibly, and then decided to start this new business with Get Staffed Up. Was it? What'd you say? 6.5 years ago? Was it?
Yeah, 2018, right at the beginning of
So
2018.
what caused you to say, you know what, there's something here and it's time to start a new business around this? Like you went to college for
Recording
seven
stopped.
you went to college for 7 years and you did the things that lawyers have to do and you built this firm and then you said, all right, I'm ready for something new. I'm ready for a new identity.
Yeah. So you know how people say you got to have proof of concept?
Yes.
I don't know if we had that. Like I just knew this thing was going to be big, and I hate to because we've all been wrong at times in our lives, and people usually don't just talk about the times that they were wrong.
Yeah.
But me and my co-founder, also an attorney here in Miami, he figured out how to do some recruiting offshore. He had a real estate law firm, and he just so happened to have like three people leaving, so he replaced them. And I was like, what the heck? I need a marketing assistant. Find me one. So we did, and I was like, dude, like he had the idea, but I had the business model.
Yeah.
Right. So he was going to do what a lot of people do, which is like consult and that kind of stuff. And I was like, or, here are all the things that I've read and being an entrepreneurs organization and learning, here's how we should do it. So we were sitting on my porch and just talking out loud and we're like, dude, this thing's going to be big.
Yeah.
And, it is, frankly, and it has become that. And when I first started telling people, some people got it. And then it took off with those people. Others, it was like, well, how do I work with somebody virtually?
Yeah.
And then, fast forward to 2020, and our biggest objection was obliterated overnight.
Yep.
And everybody had to work with people remotely or virtually, however you want to call it. So it's also a lot of luck. It's timing. It's not it. I was also at the beginning, I was putting in about 1 day per week. So I didn't take that much time away from the firm. Now, if you're thinking like, oh my God, how could I ever step away from my business for 1 day a week? Yeah, because I worked on it. I was intentional. We put a leadership team in place. We put, meeting rhythms in place. We run on EOS or traction.
Yep.
We have our coaches. We have our systems, our policies, our procedures so that I could step away and do something like this. And then over time, it became something that I needed to spend more and more time on. And thankfully I had the right team in place and I had the people that supported me and I was able to do that.
So tell me a little bit about that process with the law firm, because when you got to the point where you could take enough time to step away to launch a multi-million-dollar business, but you started out as the lawyer, the assistant, the receptionist, the everybody. So tell us a little bit about that journey and what you learned, because here's the real story: is the mistakes you made and the lessons you learned scaling the law firm, you then took in to Get Staffed Up when you launched that, right? It was easier to launch Get Staffed Up. Yes, you were lucky and the timing was good and blah, 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 but also you became a really good business owner because of all the stuff that you went through in the law firm. So if you could distill it down and reduce the mistakes, what are some of those most valuable lessons that you learned that allowed you to scale the next business so rapidly?
Sure. When I hired my very first employee at the law firm, we, and I'm not exaggerating, just like to the dollar doubled our revenue just with one employee. So I went from, barely scraping by, having to pay my really small, rent, or mortgage, my rent in my office, software, and then feed a family, to like, oh my God, I've got some capital here. Like, I've never felt this before. My whole life, I've never ever had money,
Yeah.
right? So that was, now my grandfather had a jewelry store in our little hometown in New Mexico. Then my dad bought it, but when I was 10 and my parents split up, he sold it, he liquidated it, and he went into teaching just like my mom and then my stepfather were. So I mean, we weren't homeless. I'm not going to exaggerate,
Yeah.
right? But just never money in the bank. I was in debt. I couldn't even borrow like $25,000 on from the SBA for any wiggle room to get started because I didn't have any collateral.
Yeah.
And I certainly didn't have, again, no offense to them, but I didn't have the parents that had collateral. And so,
Yep.
but that's just how I was. So I never really thought about it too much. Somebody suggested I take a loan. I looked into it. I was denied. I was like, okay, I just move on. And then I only knew you had to hustle and do everything yourself.
Yep.
And I was finally convinced to hire somebody.
Who
So
was
I
that?
did
Who
it
was that first? What was that first position that you filled? Who was your first hire?
it was like do everything. So it was a law student. So I did it as cheaply as possible because again, like my growth, it may not be apparent, but around like finances and my mindset and understanding all that is pretty dramatic. So
Yep.
I hired a law student. I think I paid her. Her name's Christina Flores. She's now a really good lawyer. Went to a great law school in Chicago. Of course, I gave her a start. But I told her, you may get to do some legal work for me, but mostly you're gonna be like my assistant. So she started getting on the phone. She started managing. Like this is 2011 and 12, so we were still sending faxes at that time.
Yep.
So like I licked my own stamps, sent my own faxes. She did all of that for me, and it sounds like this amazing feat, but when you think about it as a billable lawyer, Adam, if I'm billing 1 hour and then I free up my time to bill 2 hours, it's quite literally doubling my time. And that's what my revenue was. So, I mean, it's simple math, but when we could, people have said, well, why don't you work with bigger law firms? Like who's your niche? And that's fine. We have some of that going on, but it's because I really love helping who you were at the beginning, who
Yep.
I was. And I feel myself like trying to beat someone over the head because I'm projecting back on myself, trying to like convince, like butterfly effect back in time and convince myself earlier to hire. So I always get like fired up when I'm telling people like, stop doing everything yourself. I'm not
Yep.
just trying to sell you something. You cannot just every second of your day where you're doing an administrative task, you're earning $10 an hour,
Yep.
and you're not going to feed your family that way.
I say that life is too short to make all the mistakes on your own. And that's the whole point of having this radio show and this podcast.
Sure.
Is
Yeah.
this is the content, this is the education, these are the lessons that I wish I had when I was starting out, right? That's why this show exists. So I want to talk about a couple of the things that you just said because it was really good. So you bring in this law student, no job description, no cultural onboarding, just for the love of God, come in and rescue me from this job.
Just show up. I hope I can pay you. Quite literally, I was terrified that I couldn't pay her like $400 a week. It was $300 a week because I basically started her part-time, 30 hours. Again, I was doing it as cheaply as possible.
But here's the thing. I think some people are going to hear that and say, well, of course you could do that because if you were paying her $300 a week and you just go bill an extra hour a day, you can pay for her, right? Because you're a lawyer and you're lucky and your rates are so high. And one interesting thing is there's companies out there that have done the study, like solo lawyers bill and collect something like 1.4 hours per day on average.
Yeah.
That's it. Like legal work is limited to less than an hour and a half a day because of all the other stuff that they have to do. But that truth resonates in other businesses. Any other business that you own, if you're a landscaper or you've got a retail business, like you are spending time in your coffee shop as a barista, not just owning the business. So the lesson there that you just explained of freeing up your time to do other things is really valuable, even if you're not a lawyer. But what I want to hear next is, so that's step one, is bring in the employee to do whatever, anything, the low cost tasks for me so that I can do higher value activities. But then you would have gone through another stage too, where it went from, okay, now Brett can bill more hours to clients, to there's higher value activities than that even in your business, right?
Yeah.
So tell me, and you said you run on EOS and like traction. Our firm, both of our businesses do as well. So what they call it is delegate and elevate. Get someone to do the low value stuff or the stuff that you really dislike doing, so that you can move up that food chain and do the higher value activities and the things that you enjoy even more. So give us the next stage there of how you went from solo +1 to whatever the total that you just gave me was, 150, 200 employees.
No, absolutely. So that was the summer of 2014. And she was going back to law school, so I had to figure something out. But finally, I had some money in my business bank account. So, this is one thing I will give myself credit for, is I saw that it worked, so I went for it, and I was no longer afraid to hire. That's not true. You still kind of have that pit in your stomach when you start calculating, okay, this person makes this, it's going to cost me this, that's going to be this much more per month. How do I pay for that person, right? But I hired a girl who was almost finishing paralegal school, and then my revenue tripled from the beginning, right? So I got maybe up to like three billable hours per day. Started, business planning, working on fixing intake. So, but it wasn't until I started fixing the different parts of the business, then I really sort of, I had to get 2 or 3 lawyers, build out a team before I had the ability to say, all right, what do I now want to do? Like, what do I enjoy, and how do I spend my time that's not billing, that's, working on clients and networking and that's what I talk about in the book, is this 24 months of freedom. It's not just like, oh, in 24 months you'll be sailing on a yacht somewhere. You'll have a vacation home in the Maldives, and you'll only work for 10 days a year. That's just not realistic. It's about having the type of business that just doesn't crush you, both emotionally, financially, your time. So you stop treading water. You get out of the water, you sit on the beach, and you think, all right, I'm safe. I can do this. My business is running. People are being paid. My family's, okay. What now? And that's the moment I think a lot of people, they say there's terror barriers, and I think it's like 90% of businesses fail in 4 to 5 years. And only like 5% ever get, there's like a valley of death between 2 and 4 million. Because in the small business sector, this is not only about, being a lawyer. If you have a tutoring company, if you're, a plumbing company, if you're an AC guy or girl, I guess, if you're answering your own phones, if you're trying to set your own appointments, if you're on a job and you're getting interrupted so you can take the call because you need more business, well, then you got distracted. Maybe the client heard you take the call. Maybe you're not focused, so you spent more time on that job because you were being interrupted, and then you're like, hold on, let me see if I'm available. It's a bad use of your time, and it's affecting your mental health, your well-being. And you can say, oh no, but I like doing all those things. Okay, fine. But most people are lying to themselves.
Totally.
You would rather have, in this case, a much less expensive virtual assistant who's answering your phones really friendly, who's booking appointments for you. So all you have to do is show up. You and I were just talking about a book that's coming out. I don't know how much you can get into it, but that's the perfect example where, depending on how much you want to talk about, Adam, the guy's just showing up and everything was kind of done for him.
Yeah. Well, we're saving that for a later show.
Okay,
yeah, we're saving that for a later show, but it's a great lesson in entrepreneurship. So you made some really good points there, but I'm really curious about something. So you said you went to get an SBA loan, $25,000, and you were denied. So you hustled basically and hired that first part-time employee, doubled your business. Hired your second employee, tripled your business. Do you think that, and then turning that into building a real leadership team so that you've got two really successful businesses, a couple leadership teams, I guess. Do you think if you got that initial loan, you would have learned those lessons and figured out the things that you had to figure out in order to get where you are now?
I would have sat on the money. I would have done nothing with it. But I think it would have been. I do think so, because 25,000 is not enough to make you just sit around and be comfortable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I hate to say, like, I think it'd be a better answer was that I don't think I would have ever learned. Those losses are important. Those losses
Yep.
that we talked about, those lessons, I mean, they're painful, but they are important. But I don't think it would have changed that much for me. But I do think there would have been different lessons.
I
I think if I may have blown the money, or I may have done nothing with it, I
Yep.
think I'd have a different story, but I think it would have been similar.
I bet if you really sat and thought about it, $25,000 back then would have been an awful lot of money to you, and you would have slept better at
Oh,
night, and you wouldn't have
no,
felt
no,
that
for sure.
pressure. That pressure would have been lifted, and you
Yeah.
wouldn't have had the drive or the need actually to go and figure it out the way that you did. And I think a lot of business owners struggle with that, is they say, "Oh, I need a loan, I need a grant, I need money for my business." No, you don't. You need customers. You need
Yeah.
people paying you for the thing that you can do, and you need to figure it out from there. Now, the next
Hold
step,
on.
yeah, go ahead.
Let me interject. Here's a part I may disagree with you. It's because humans have a greater aversion to loss than they do a drive to succeed.
Hmm.
So as far as I understand it, both of myself and what I've read is, I used to tell people, like, well, if I can only get up to $20,000 in my business operating account, then I'll have some wiggle room, some money.
Yep,
But when you get up to that amount, now you're terrified to lose that amount. So
yep,
so you actually don't invest it. You just hold on to it as much as possible, and it almost sort of like paralyzes you again, because but if I hire someone, I'm going to lose that money. I'm going to drop below this new
yep,
sort of safe barrier I'm in. So it may have done some of the things you said, which is, help you sleep better and maybe hustle a little bit less. But I don't think I would have hired somebody still. I mean,
yeah,
I had to have a mentor just really kick my teeth in and
yep.
convince me to hire someone. I just thought there's no way.
They didn't actually kick your teeth in, but
Sure.
there was the threat of that. But yeah, I mean that money in the bank account becomes the new standard, right? And I think that's what you talked about, terror barriers, getting to those new standards, getting to the point in our business, which happened in about 24 months, where our monthly payroll, like what we were paying in wages in a month just 2 years ago, was like our revenue in an entire
Revenue.
month, right?
Sure. That's crazy.
And that gets scary, because it goes from, oh, we got to generate this much in revenue to be profitable, to we got to generate this much in revenue just to keep people on payroll, and then add in all the
Yep.
other expenses on top of that. So let's get into the specifics on an assistant, right? So you talked about your hiring journey and how you've scaled this, and it's your belief and your opinion and your advice that your first hire on day zero should be an assistant. And if somebody's listening to this and they say, I've never had an assistant, I don't understand how it could work virtually, I don't have the money for this, map it out. How do you make this work? How does this get you to success?
Spend 3 or 4 days writing down every single thing you do. If you've never tracked your time, you'll be amazed at the amount of waste, the amount of decisions, the things that, if you're being honest with yourself, somebody else could handle for you. They could take it off your plate so that you have more time. And then again, it goes back to what you said earlier, how I was spending my time in 2019. You then need to spend your time on a higher use, a higher value, or just something you like doing more.
Yep.
Because when you're doing something you like, that's apparent. You've got good energy. It's attractive to people. And so you take a highlighter and you start highlighting all the things you hate or don't like, right?
Yep.
If we don't like that word. And then all the things that you think you could delegate, and there's your list. And for like per, professionals, lawyers, CPAs, that kind of stuff, it's a lot of administrative, it's a lot of email. I mean, lawyers, we can spend 6 hours a day, if not more, in email,
Yep.
if we're not careful, and feel like, man, I've been arguing with people, I've been emailing things out, I'm really productive, but how did that really push the needle?
Yeah.
It's setting the appointments. It's answering emails. It's scheduling the appointments. It's preventing the email thread that's 15 emails back and forth. I'm available here. Well, I'm not available here. I'm available here. I know there's tools now that help you with that, but it's setting up the tool and making sure it's working.
Yep.
It's confirming the appointments. All the things, if you're gonna look like you have it together, someone else needs to handle for you so you can do the thing.
You know what? There's a good thing that you mentioned in there that I totally forgot about. Is you're the person who taught me that I could delegate my inbox, my email inbox, to another human being. And I don't know if you came up with the story or if it was somebody else in this program that I used to be in, but we'll use the law firm example, but this is true in every business. There aren't any business owners out there or successful people who are standing at the front desk of their office waiting for the mailman to show up. And as soon as the mail shows up, they dump it out on the table and excitedly rip open every message that's in there.
Right.
Yet that's what we do with our inbox. It's open all day in front of us on your computer, constant dings and alerts and distractions when we know our best value is actually spent deep in work on issues, right? Not skimming over the surface, not I didn't even decide yesterday was what I was going to order for lunch. It showed up for me and Jackie. It was on the table with the silverware and the napkins, and then kind of as a joke, my assistant made little name cards for us so we knew where to sit, right? But that is just one less decision that I had to make yesterday. Oh, and by the way, because I tell her my rules, she probably ordered me a healthier lunch than I would have ordered for myself, right?
Right.
So I think can you tell us a little bit, like, how do you delegate your inbox? How does it get to the point where you don't need to be the one answering every single message that you get? Because it was April of 2019 the first time I heard that, and I went, wait, what? I ran back into my office after that seminar and hearing about that and told my team, I'm never writing another email again. So how do you get there?
That's funny. Yeah, that's the analogy I use. It's like, back in the old days, a secretary opened the mail, sorted the mail, threw out the trash, put like announcements or invitations in another sort of box for later, and then quite literally brought you only what you needed to know as a lawyer at a specific time in a day, started reading you the letter. 10% into the letter, you already knew what it was going to say. So you dictated a response and you moved on.
Yeah.
And I started doing that. We would print every single, just to teach my assistant early on. This is before, get stepped up and in person. We printed my entire inbox every day, which is a lot of paper, I know, but I was like going through it just to go through it. And I would spend like 15, 20 minutes a day on email, and it was just glorious. And I had to train myself, just leave it closed.
Yep.
And now I sometimes don't look at my email for days, and my assistant will just ding me if there's something important in there. But sometimes on my phone, I do look at it because it's my choice. And I'm just, you know what? I've freed up enough time where I'm not sacrificing something else for that time.
Yeah. I think that's a great example of, if you really sat and thought about it, the time that you're spending in your email is actually very low value time for you. For most people. There's exceptions, and I'm going to get angry messages from people that say, no, I get urgent and important email messages all day, every day. Yeah, okay, sure, maybe. But for most of the people out there, it's a bunch of low urgency crap. It's a bunch of low value crap. And especially when we get into the 37 emails back and forth just to schedule the phone call so that we can actually solve this problem.
Yeah.
So I think that's really good.
I'm sure this is a millennial thing, but I have stacks of real mail that I get sent to my home that I don't look at for like weeks.
Yeah.
I hate mail so much, and getting out of email was one of the biggest things that the best things I ever did in my life, because it was just owning me. And then you start to, every time you get one, let me check. What does it say? Like, what are you doing to yourself? The people who make the argument you just made, like, but I get really important emails. So check them at 10 a.m. for 20 minutes and check them at 4 p.m. for 20 minutes. Like, there's nothing in your business. Well, there is something called a 5-minute rule. So if you get a lead in business and you don't respond in 5 minutes, your chances of landing that potential client drop to like 10%.
Yep.
But imagine you have to be the one that responds every time. No, it's got to be someone else. It's got to be a person that's going to help you save you from yourself.
That's one of those things that helps you create a small business versus being self-employed.
Yeah.
If I want to take my kids to Disney World and someone else can respond to those leads within 5 minutes, I have a small business, right?
Right.
It can operate without me. And that's a great first step there.
And a small business is fun. Like it sounds like I need to hire a few funnier people like that are gonna make me nameplates and stuff. You know what I mean? Like that's enjoyable. And you said it quickly, but like you didn't have to think about what you wanted to eat. You didn't get hungry and make a bad decision. You just showed up, and what else did you do at that time? Something far more valuable.
Yeah, actually, that's interesting because it is the most valuable hour and a half of my week. It's when Jackie and I sit down and have our business and personal planning meeting, and we go through the week, the month, the quarter, and the year, and all of the stuff that we have going on. And it ranged from our next 3 hires to our son needs a new mattress on his bed, right? So those are the decisions. That's where I want to be spending my time. Now, you probably would have delegated the mattress ordering, but whatever. That one took me 5 minutes. The other thing that I think a lot of people don't think about, and you sort of alluded to this in dealing with the new leads, and I always got this from the show Mad Men. And I will use the gendered terms because that was the era and that was the show. But you had the guy sitting in his office, and he had his girl sitting out front at the desk, right? The secretary was sitting out front, and she had her little desk and her little typewriter set up, and she would sit there filing her nails. And I think there's a lot of business owners that look at that and say, why would I pay someone to just sit there and file their nails and wait for something to happen? That's exactly what you're hiring someone to do. They don't need to be there cranking the wheel and working and hustling all day, every day. In a lot of instances, what you're paying them for is their availability. So when the email does come in, or the phone does ring, or the client is running in the door with pocketfuls of cash ready to do something, that person can deal with it. Meanwhile, you can be sitting in your office at the whiteboard mapping out your next $100,000 business idea or the next marketing campaign or whatever it is, right? That's the real value to that.
There's another important thing is they're a gatekeeper to your time. So if you answered your own phone as a business owner, anyone in the world can get your time anytime they want. And so you're perceived as less valuable and less busy. And people don't want to pay for your time when you give it away for free.
And in fact, you are less valuable because you're not doing the valuable stuff.
You're not doing exactly. I always talk about this. Would you ever hire or like you're vetting surgeons for some sort of important surgery, and you call and like the doctor answers his or her own phone? You'd be like, I think I got the wrong number.
Yeah. Yeah,
you know?
or I'm on vacation in Hawaii right now, but I'm happy to take your phone call. No, bro, like you need to be relaxing and chilling out because you're going to be operating on me.
So. You know when you call an AC or plumber, you're kind of deep down hoping they answer your own phone why? Because that person is probably cheaper.
Yeah.
It's like this subconscious thing where like, oh, I can get this guy. He'll answer a bunch of questions, and I probably get this guy for cheap instead of the company that has the systems in place that probably does a better job.
There are certain instances where I want the guy versus hiring the business, right?
Sure.
But there's reasons for it and there's exceptions to it. Sometimes it's easier just to have that one neck to wring.
But not to miss the point. Like we call our assistants gatekeepers because they prevent people from just bothering us so that we can get done what we need to get done.
And I think that's what's really cool is you've, for a lot of people, democratized that. You've taken something that is for the big corporate executives or the multi-millionaires and said, you know what, we can bring this down to the common man, the common lawyer, the common business owner, that we can send this stuff, we can employ people overseas, add the value that you need. And in fact, for us, hiring your company to help with employees overseas has allowed us to hire more people locally, frees up cash flow, allows us to grow the business, all kinds of great stuff there. So, all right, Brett, we are out of time. If you have one closing remark in 30 seconds, what do you want to share with us?
30 seconds. It's literally delegate your way to freedom. You know, the way that my life looked 10 years ago compared to now is just night and day. I mean, I don't have enough time to give you the examples, but I spent a lot of time with my kids, and I'll tell you, there's nothing that
can't beat it.
That's the best result I've ever had.
All right, 24 Months to Freedom, available on Amazon. Thanks to Brett Trembly for tuning in today on Maverick Mindset Radio. Check out Trembly Law Firm in Miami. Get staffed up for virtual assistants. Have a great week, everybody. I believe in you.